Welcome to episode 6 of Stick to Sports. I'm Brian Burrows.
And I'm Ben Diamond. Today, we take a look at some exciting games for Week 9 of the NFL season and predict the winners of MLB's most prestigious awards.
Roll it. The Cincinnati Bengals went into Sunday night on a 3-game win streak, ready to take on an inconsistent Buffalo Bills team. They scored on their first 2 drives of the game and added 10 more throughout the game. The defense held strong all game, and they came away with the 24-18 win. Josh Allen was held under 275 yards for the 6th time in 9 games this season, and the Bills' rushing attack was held to 68 yards, 44 of which were Josh Allen. Ben, what has happened to the Bills this season?
I mean, this Bills team is suffering from very inconsistent play. I think that's very clear. As we saw, they can explode for 48 points against a Dolphins team. However, against the Patriots, against the Giants, they're having so much trouble trying to get any offense going. And it's really become, because of this poor running game that they have, as you just mentioned, 68 rushing yards and 44 coming from your quarterback. That's not what you want to see. So very one-dimensional style of play from this Bills team. And if I'm a Bills fan, I'm honestly hitting the panic button. We're halfway through the season, and we have not looked good. We've looked good against some playoff teams, but the Dolphins have not looked good against playoff teams. So is that really that telling? I don't know. I think I'm panicking if I'm a Bills fan.
No, I'm definitely panicking as a Bills fan. I know they're pretty even right now in the AFC East. There is pretty competitive though. Besides the Patriots, the Dolphins look good. The Jets are fighting. They lost the Jets week 1. So I think the Bills are having tough. They have only really one real receiver is Stephon Diggs. Gabe Davis is either really good or really bad on a week-to-week basis, so you really can't trust him. Khalil Shakir steps up. Dalton Kincaid had a decent game, but it really wasn't they don't have a really good core around Josh Allen either. James Cook has been okay, but it hasn't been great. So I'm also panic button as well, especially with injuries on defense. I'm not really sure how they're going to go this far. They could very easily miss the playoffs, or if they make the playoffs, I could very easily see a first-round exit.
The Kansas City Chiefs and the Miami Dolphins went head-to-head in Germany as both teams tried to get the leg up on the other in the AFC playoff race. It was a strange game as neither quarterback threw for over 200 passing yards. Ultimately, the Chiefs scored all 21 of their points in the first half, and the defense held the Dolphins to only 14 points, all of which were scored in the third quarter. With both teams not performing particularly well, what were some of your takeaways from this game, Brian?
So I know that both teams didn't play the best, but my takeaway, the biggest one I see, is that the Chiefs' defense this year is very, very legit. They held the Dolphins to under 300 yards. Tyreek Hill had one of his worst games of the season so far. I know he had 8 catches for 60 yards, but that's still, for what he's been doing this year, really bad. Their defense has stepped up so much. It's very surprising what's happened. This team of not really any star players. I know there's Chris Jones. But besides that, there aren't household names on this defense. They have stepped up. They've yet to give up more than 24 in a game this year. And that one team they did was to the Broncos in that week 8 loss, which is really tough. On the Dolphins side, I also, like I said for the Bills, headed for a first-round exit. There's 0-3 versus teams with winning records this year.
Yeah, I mean, this year the Dolphins, again, I feel like the Bills, a very streaky team. It's very weird because they're not winning the games against the teams that they're going to need to win in the playoffs if they want to go to the Super Bowl. Whereas the opposite for the Bills, where the Bills losing games to teams that might not even make the playoffs at all. But as for the Chiefs, a big bounce-back win for this team. They lost the week before to the Broncos, but a little suspect they didn't score it all in the second half. So it's going to be something to take a look at as we move forward in the season.
Josh Dobbs was traded at the deadline for a 6th-round pick from the Cardinals to the Vikings to fill the void left by the injury to Kirk Cousins. He wasn't even the starting quarterback for the game, but rookie Jaron Hall going down prompted him to come off the bench. He would end up leading the Vikings to a 31-28 victory over the Falcons. He threw for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns and added another 66 yards and 1 touchdown with his legs. Ben, he didn't even know his teammates' names. Is this one of the best quarterback performances in recent history?
I mean, this is certainly one of the more impressive performances. I mean, a really impressive one from the Pastronaut, this nickname that I've seen all over Instagram today. But he was able to make the Cardinals look better than they were in a few games. And now he's been put in a really good situation where he has guys around him that can, make better plays than there were on the Cardinals. So realistically, he could continue to take the Vikings to the next level in the absence of Kirk Cousins. It will be very interesting because we also haven't seen him with Justin Jefferson yet. So his top option isn't even out there yet, and they're still able to win this game in his first game, not knowing anybody. I think we have not even seen the best yet.
No, I would definitely agree. Josh Dobbs has looked really good. I'm surprised Arizona gave up on him so easily. I'm surprised they were gonna bench him this week before trading him. So I really do believe that Josh Dobbs, it's this really weird story because he's been a bench guy. So I really don't know why teams are giving up on him so much because he's looked really good. I know he has the turnover problems. He had 3 fumbles in that game, but as a really quarterback, he's been a really good game manager. His legs are almost his dynamic weapon too.
C.J. Stroud absolutely dominated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, torching them for 470 passing yards and 5 touchdowns. The Texans had 3 receivers over 100 receiving yards, and Stroud is far ahead in the Offensive Rookie of the Year race, surpassing 2,000 passing yards with his performance on Sunday and throwing 14 touchdowns with only 1 interception halfway through the season. Brian, should Stroud have been the #1 pick in the past draft, or is the Miko Ryan system the perfect fit for him?
C.J. Stroud should 100% have been the #1 pick in this draft. Bryce Young has looked so bad. I know the Panthers are not a good team, but C.J. Stroud, the team around C.J. Stroud, especially that offense, is not great. I mean, he's making receivers like Nico Collins, Robert Woods, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz look like potentially top players in the league, top receivers. Nico Collins, out of nowhere, becoming this really good #1 target for him. There's a chance he's going to break the rookie yards and touchdown record. I know he's on pace for 4,800 yards right now, and the record's 4,300 set by Andrew Luck. He's on pace for 30 touchdowns, and the 31 is the record set by Justin Herbert. So they absolutely should have been the #1 pick. I don't think it's the system at all. I mean, DeMeco Ryans is a defensive coach for everything, all that matters.
Yeah, I mean, right now this couldn't have worked out better for the Texans. I mean, this finally have that quarterback that he can build around and really get into the draft and into trades and really build this team up and possibly get back to where they were early in Deshaun Watson's career just a few years ago.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the NBA, NHL, and more here on WTOP 10.
Put the keys down, Kevin.
But I'm gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
I guess I have really been looking for love in this dating app. Yep, I'm definitely gonna call a ride home.
We'll deep dive into our feelings in our Real Talk segment. Stay tuned because it's about to get real.
What's going on?
Yeah, dude, we go on at 11:30. It's
No.
What do you mean no?
It's 10:30.
10:30?
Matt, it's 10:30.
What do you mean it's 10:30?
Hey, don't touch that. That's my ladder.
Hey, man.
Whoa. You know this book was already discounted 10%?
Wow.
Wow.
Get a close up of that one.
Matthew,
Look at that.
Can we go back inside? I want to sleep in the studio again.
Welcome back to Stick to Sports. Less than a week ago, the Philadelphia 76ers traded away James Harden to the Los Angeles Clippers. He hadn't seen the floor this season, and the Sixers don't seem to miss him. They have started the season 4-1, and the reigning MVP Joel Embiid has picked things up right where he left off, averaging 29 points per game and 11 rebounds. Ben, can Joel alone lead this team to a high seed this season?
Ultimately, I don't think that we're going to see them as a high seed, like we're talking about like number 1, number 2, number 3. I can see a 4, 5, or 6 seed in their future because they still have guys like Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey to just be right next to the right and left-hand man for Joel Embiid throughout the season. They also have good role guys, Patrick Beverley and Kelly Oubre Jr., just to name a couple. But while they won't be as dominant as they would be if they had, remember, like guys like James Harden on the roster as well, I still think they're going to be a force in the East this season.
Yeah, I actually think they really can go pretty far this year. Joel is having a really good year. Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey are having really good starts to the year, though I think when things average out down the stretch of the season, they'll drop back a little bit, but I think the role players will step in more. I mean, you mentioned Kelly Oubre, who was a great signing on a veteran minimum. He's averaging over 20 a game right now, having some really big performances for them. And I do think Joel Embiid can continue this. So I do think high seed is definitely in their future.
It's a possibility, but the Memphis Grizzlies have struggled out of the gate, dropping their first 6 games of the season before defeating the Portland Trailblazers 112-100 on Sunday. The Grizzlies are missing Ja Morant, who was suspended the first 25 games of the season back in June. The Grizzlies have a difficult schedule through their first 25 games, and the absence of Morant could lead to more results like their first 7 games. Will they still be able to make the playoffs ultimately, Brian?
I don't think so. I think not having Ja is just going to be too much for them. The supporting cast around Ja was really good, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson, but when they have to be the leading scorers, the leading players in this team, it's just not, none of them are true alphas. I don't think it's going to work. Desmond Bane having a great start, but he's just not the number one type. Jaren Jackson's a great player, but he also isn't that leading player type. They're just digging themselves too deep of a hole for when Ja to come back to take him out of.
While I agree, I feel like once he comes back, they'll be able to win enough games while he's out. But when he comes back, I think this core, as you mentioned, Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bane, also Marcus Smart that they added in the offseason, they do have the players to win games. It's just going to be interesting how they navigate this first 25-game stretch, already 7 games into it. So these last 18 games, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how they fare going forward.
The New Jersey Devils have started the season 7-3-1 and are currently 3rd in the Eastern Conference. They have won 6 of their last 8 games and being led by Jack Hughes, league-high 15 assists. The former first overall pick broke out last year with 99 points and is currently on pace for well over 100. Ben, can Jack Hughes lead this team to the promised land?
To be honest, I don't think they're quite there yet. They're still such a young team, but they do have playoff experience now. It's something that is super important, especially when you get towards the end of the season into the playoffs. You want that playoff experience, and being young and already having that sort of winning a series against the Rangers last year, that's huge for development, for everything. And they're a very well-balanced team, and that'll be very important because right now Hughes is out with a shoulder injury. See how they fare, but teams like the Bruins, Avalanche, and Golden Knights might be in their way to getting that ultimate goal.
Yeah, I think they can do pretty well this year, but I do want to give caution and warning. They had a 13-game win streak from the end of October to the end of November last year that put them in a good spot, and they still kind of fell back. But this team is really good. The additions of Toffoli and Timo Meier have really helped this team grow.
The Anaheim Ducks have had a difficult schedule to start the 2023-24 season, but they have weathered the storm, going 7-4-0 in their first 11 games. They have had an impressive wins against top teams like the Boston Bruins, Carolina Hurricanes, and most recently, the Vegas Golden Knights, handing them their first regulation loss of the season. Brian, can the Ducks find a way to make it into the playoffs after going 23-47-12 last season?
Yeah, I definitely think they can. They have a really solid core: Mason McTavish, Troy Terry, Trevor Zegras, and a lot of solid veterans around them like Ryan Strome and Frank Vetrano. McTavish looks like on pace to have a breakout season, and that could be a huge boost to their offensive production. They're on pace for 730 goals, where they only had 559 last year, and they're being helped right now by the Flames, Kraken, and Oilers, all having really bad starts to their season in the same division as them. So I think a good, solid stretch of games, they definitely could go far into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think ultimately the goal of this season for the Ducks after the season they had last year is making the playoffs, especially with young players like Leo Carlsson and Trevor Zegras. Both players getting that playoff experience just now can help them build for the future.
An MVP award is the ultimate sign of greatness in the MLB. Last year was Aaron Judge in the AL and Paul Goldschmidt in the NL taking home the awards. Ben, who are your MVPs in each league this year?
In the AL, I have to go with Shohei Ohtani. He's the shoo-in. Ultimately, that's what's going to happen. you know, obviously hitting the lights out and then, of course, doing what he does on the mound. Unfortunately, got injured, so he wasn't able to pitch for the rest of the season. But, I mean, still hitting 44 home runs on the season and batting over 300. That's going to win you the MVP, especially when you're on the mound as well. In the NL, I'd have to say it's between Mookie and Acuna. Ultimately, it will be Acuna, just based off being the first guy ever to be in the 40-70 club, 41 home runs, 73 stolen bases. Nobody was better than him this year.
No, I'm going to completely agree with your thoughts. Shohei Ohtani is definitely the MVP. Seager and Simeon just weren't the same guy. Shohei did it on both sides of the ball. He was just so good. A 10-WAR player. Not many people do that. 44 homers and almost missed 30 games. And in the NL, I'm going to agree with Acuna too. The 40-70 thing I think gets him there alone. But he also had 80 extra base hits and 41 and an OPS plus of 168.
With the new pitch clock this season, some pitchers thrived with the new pace, while others could not keep up with the short time between pitches. Brian, from each league, who do you think will come away with this year's Cy Young Award?
For me in the AL, it's got to be Garrett Cole. As a Red Sox fan, it hurts to say that, but he was a 7.5 WAR pitcher with the over 200 innings pitched, strikes out over 200, ERA plus of 165. That's so good for a pitcher. And then he leads the league in whip. So it's just such a good year from him. In the NL, give me Blake Snell. I know he led the league in walks with 99. It's just a really odd year for him, strikeouts to walks wise. But the 6 WAR, and even though he had 30 less innings pitched in Gallen, who I think is going to be the runner-up, it's a 2.25 ERA to a 3.47.
Yeah, it's really interesting, this Cy Young race in the NL specifically. I agree with Garrett Cole. Although Sonny Gray had a fantastic season, I think Garrett Cole, just his ability to make every single start, 33 starts this season, penciled in every time that he was needed. Ultimately, he'll win it in the AL, and I have to agree. I think Blake Snell, even with that high walk count, he's going to end up coming away with it because of how dominant he was down the stretch. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Brian will be joined by a very special guest here on WTOP 10.
What's going on?
Yeah, dude, we go on at like 11:30. It's like
No.
What do you mean no?
It's 10:30.
10:30?
Matt, it's 10:30.
What do you mean it's 10:30?
Hey, don't touch that. That's my ladder.
Hey, man.
Whoa. You know this book was already discounted 10%?
Wow.
Wow.
Get a close up of that one.
Need to
Broadcast
look at that.
Can we go back inside? I want to sleep in the studio again.
We'll deep dive into our feelings in our Real Talk segment. Stay tuned because it's about to get real.
Welcome back to Stick to Sports. It's time for the Fast Break. Joining me now is special guest Garrett Chin, filling in for Alex tonight. Garrett, what do you have for us?
Thanks, Brian. We start the Fast Break recapping a huge day of managerial hires across Major League Baseball. In Cleveland, the Guardians announced the hiring of former All-Star catcher Stephen Vogt as the new manager to replace future Hall of Fame skipper Terry Francona. In New York, while all signs were pointing toward Craig Counsell, the New York Mets went a different route, naming Yankees bench coach Carlos Mendoza to be their next manager. Shortly after, the Chicago Cubs and council agreed to a 5-year contract worth over $40 million, making him the highest paid manager in baseball history. Brian, what are your thoughts on the Cubs letting go of David Ross and promptly replacing him with the former Brewers skipper?
This is one of the weirder things that I've seen in baseball, especially because the Cubs had a solidified manager in there with David Ross, who nobody really thought was going to go. But for the Cubs, I think it's a really good signing. The Cubs are a good team, though they're going to lose Bellinger, which could be a big hit, and potentially Stroman, though bringing in Craig Counsell could definitely prompt them coming back. They have a young core in Swanson and Horner to build around as well. And now the Brewers are left with huge holes at both the GM spot and the manager spot. So they're in a really weird spot in a very competitive division.
Yeah, you got to consider that with the Chicago Cubs. It was interesting because they had a very mediocre season. They let go of David Ross because they didn't finish strong. But then you got to consider Craig Counsell. He was the favorite for the New York Mets. You thought that David Stearns in that president of baseball ops role would try to bring him in. Obviously, things didn't pan out the way they wanted to. In what's been an already miserable and disappointing 2023-2024 NFL regular season, the New York Football Giants got some devastating news regarding their starting quarterback, Daniel Jones. An MRI confirmed Jones tore his ACL in his right knee during Sunday's game against the Las Vegas Raiders, officially ending his season. Expectations were high for the Giants quarterback after signing a 4-year, $160 million deal during the offseason. But Brian, will Big Blue have to start reevaluating their long-term plans for this premier position?
Yeah, I think they have to start looking elsewhere. Daniel Jones, this season especially, hasn't been good even when healthy. He has looked abysmal. He has not looked like the guy who he was last year. They're going to have a top pick in this draft, so we're probably in the top 5 in a very heavy quarterback class. You're looking at Caleb Williams, Drake May, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, and maybe even Shedeur Sanders going in the first round. The big problem is Jones' massive contract that you mentioned. He's fully guaranteed $35 million next year, so I don't know how they're going to get out of that.
You think about the huge QB prospect, Caleb Williams, that's in the draft. You gotta consider, like, especially with all the teams that are in front of the Giants, if they do end up getting with that top draft pick, you're wondering how you can fit yourself. Are you stuck with Daniel Jones just because, you know, this season injuries have been a problem for him? He had that neck injury that made him lose 3 games, so he hasn't been 100%. The offensive line hasn't really been doing him favors either. With the 2023 MLB season officially in the books, an intriguing offseason awaits with a free agent class led by Japanese two-way superstar Shohei Ohtani. While Ohtani will be limited to his hitting capabilities next season after undergoing Tommy John surgery back in late July, there will certainly be an abundance of teams interested in his services. Brian, what kind of contract do you expect to be offered, and which team do you think will end up landing the transcendent superstar?
Look, I think Ohtani's still in the market of a $500 million contract. I mean, after this year, after when he's healthy, he's still going to be probably a starting pitcher and a Silver Slugger hitter. As far as teams go, you're probably looking at the Yankees, Mets, and Dodgers. Those are probably the most likely teams. They have the pockets and they have the fan base to bring in a superstar like Ohtani where he'll want to play. I also think teams like a Seattle might be smart to play. They have a young core. He can be a veteran pitcher and a huge bat in that lineup. I also think the Giants could be a good fit in the Bay Area, and I've also heard Boston may be in on him too with Masataka Yoshida, his Japanese teammate.
You mentioned a lot of the teams kind of just on that West Coast. We heard reports about Ohtani wanting to stay on the West Coast, whether it's in California or possibly Seattle. I think with Ohtani, with his contract, you got to front load it a little bit just because you really don't know how much more years you're going to get with him pitching, but you know, regardless of whether he is, he's a great hitter nonetheless.
We're going to take a quick break here on Stick to Sports. Thanks once again to Garrett for the fast break. When we come back, Ben, Garrett, and I will head into extra innings. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Stick to Sports on WTOP 10.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Shine on that black.
Look at the bling. Look at do we got a diamond tester on?
Yeah, that's getting bad. Yep.
10
out of 10 recommend on Yelp.
we scored?
Yeah, we scored. We're going to the playoffs.
I can't believe I missed that.
Every time I'm buzzed, I spend too much time on my phone.
What? I should take your phone away.
No. I'll call for a ride.
Hey, why does my face look like that?
I'm playing with these new face filters.
Okay, you know what? Yep, that's mine.
But I need that back.
No.
Kevin!
Welcome back to Stick to Sports. It is time for extra innings. But first, let's take a quick look at the standings after last week.
Yeah, last week was a good week for you, Brian.
5-0. Let's go. I killed it last week. I should have actually bet these. I don't know why, but
10-15.
Yeah, we have inverse records. You're gonna have a hard time catching back up.
I'm gonna have a really hard time catching back up.
And Alex is right in the middle.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
All right, fellas, let's start with the first game. We got the Bengals and Texans. Bengals at -7 versus Houston. What you guys got?
You know, I loved what I saw from C.J. Stroud this past week. He was fantastic. But the Bengals have been really hot, and they're ultimately going to be the one that are contending for the playoffs, contending for the Super Bowl when it's all said and done. So I'm going to take the Bengals in this one.
Give me the Texans at +7. I think C.J. Stroud is going to lead this offense. There's an offensive duel like we just saw. C.J. Stroud going to throw all over the Bengals as well.
I also got the Bengals. You talked about it, Ben. Bengals have been hot recently, winning 4 straight. They got off to that rough start. Texans with C.J. Stroud, he had a magnificent game, but I think the Bengals will be too much for him.
Brooks also took the Bengals in this one, so he's with us. So 3 versus 1, Brian.
There you go. All right, next contest we have is the 49ers and the Jaguars. 49ers favorite at -3. What do you got, Brian?
Give me the 49ers at -3. I know they're in Jacksonville, but that offense is just going really well. They're coming off a bye now, so they've had extra preparation time. I know Lawrence is good, but I give me the Niners at -3.
I completely agree with you, Brian. I mean, this 49ers team has been cold recently, but they are coming off the bye. They just traded for Chase Young, and while the Jaguars have been hot, the 49ers are the better team, so I think I'm looking for a bounce back right here.
I'm agreeing with both of you guys. I think the Niners, they made that addition with Chase Young. They've gotten even better, especially with the bye week. I'm sure they're ready to go headed into this week.
And Brooks took the Jags. So it's us versus him.
The one exception. All right, next game we'll go college football. We got Michigan, #3, versus at Penn State. Michigan favorite at -4.5. Ben, what you got?
Michigan's a top 3 team in the country. I mean, you really can't go against them. They've been looking really good this season. And Penn State, you know, they're fantastic. Their offensive line fantastic. Their defense is great. But right now, I think this Michigan team is just a little bit better, so I'm going to take them in this one.
Yeah, give me Michigan too. I know it's the whiteout game for Penn State too, which is a huge game for Penn State, but Michigan -4.5, it's just too close.
I'm also going to go with Michigan. Jim Harbaugh facing Penn State, he's been very successful. I expect that run to continue.
Brooks agrees with all of us, so Michigan, go blue.
Awesome. Let's go to hockey now. We got the Colorado Avalanche at -175 versus the Devils. Brian, who do you got?
Give me the Devils. They're in Colorado, but they're rolling right now. They're really good. We talked about them earlier at 7-3-1. I don't know. I just like the Devils in this one.
I'm going to go with the Avalanche in this one. I think that ultimately they're going to be the ones contending for the Stanley Cup at the end of the season. I think they're just a little bit better than the Devils right now, especially with Jack Hughes being out with a shoulder injury.
Ben, you stole words out of my mouth. I was going to say Colorado as well, just because Jack Hughes, he's been on a tear. Fortunately, he got that bad shoulder injury. We'll see how he feels in the next coming weeks.
And Brooks agrees with you. Devils.
Huh. Wow.
2-on-2.
Split here. All right, let's go to the final contest. We got the Detroit Red Wings and the Rangers. Ben, let's start with you.
I'm going with the Red Wings. I like what Alex DeBrincat, I like what Dylan Larkin, I love what all of them on that team have been doing so far this season. They've looked great.
Give me the Rangers. I like the Rangers. What is it? Panarin. Sorry, excuse me. I think he's going to go off in this one. So give me the Rangers.
I got the Rangers as well. Igor Shesterkin was at practice today. I think having him between the pipes will be helpful for them moving forward.
And now it's all of you versus me. Brooks also took the Rangers with you guys. So I would go Red Wings. Go Red Wings. They're going to win this game. So, yeah, I think I'm going 5-0 this week.
Oh, yeah, okay. That'd be a big comeback from you. But that's all the time we have on this episode of Stick to Sports. Big thanks to Garrett for coming back on. Be sure to turn in next week right here on WTOP 10.